I'm Dr. A.V. Shivkumara, a mathematics teacher. Today, I'll be briefing how we really look at uh, selection test with regard to our IIT JEE and uh, medical excellence programs. So, this is what I'm looking at. See, basically, I'm sure Rashtrotthana people would have conveyed the dates on which these exams are going to get conducted. And I'm sure the students across have registered for the same, right? First and the foremost thing is, remember that this question paper, the selection test, will have 4 question papers. I mean, in the sense that one question paper containing 4 subjects. They being, physics. I'm sure our physics colleagues will explain what it is later. That's followed by chemistry, mathematics, and biology. This is for students who wish to get into either Tapas or Sadhana. Plus, in addition to these 4 subjects, you will be having what's called quant or other. It's basically quant in general, in briefly called it as quant or quantitative aptitude. Quantitative aptitude. And to give you an overall summary of this, I'm sure most of you people would have collected the sample paper also. There will be around 15 questions in quant, 15 in physics, 15 in chemistry, 15 in mathematics, and 15 in biology. Right? I'm sure more or less we stick on to the pattern that has been given to you already. But it does not mean that the questions remain the same. Obviously, you will be tested on a different question, more or less at the same level. It might be 10% more, 10% less, depending on, right, okay, how we go about on that particular day. That's all. Now, coming back to the basic stream on which I prefer to elaborate, quantitative aptitude as well as mathematics, because both of these things will be set by a mathematics teacher only. So I prefer to elaborate much about this as well as this because that contributes a major chunk to the selection of students. In the quant or rather quantitative aptitude, as said already, there are 15 questions. And of the 15 questions, remember that the varieties of questions varies maybe from basics of mathematics to slightly complicated situations. I'll tell you what it is. Don't worry too much about it. So is the case with mathematics. I'm sure since you have completed 10 years of schooling, because such of those who are appearing for the 10th are there in, I mean, probably for our Tapas or for Sadhana programs, right? For their 11th, I'm sure you all will be in 10th standard. And now, this particular part will be based on the content that you would have learned over 10 years of schooling. Sir, what do you mean by this? Maybe we can certainly include few problems from percentages. We can include problems from maybe something like, suppose somebody sells a product with X percentage of profit. The cost price of the article is being some money. What should be the selling price of the same? Simple example to quote with. This is not the exact wording that you come across in a question paper. I'm only explaining quant to start with now. Now, then after, suppose the rate of interest, I'm looking at, right, okay, a problem on percentage. Suppose for certain amount of money, right, if the bank gives you 5% interest per annum, What is the simple interest that one is going to get after 2 years, after 3 years, after 5 years, some such thing? Or it can be a problem on compound interest. Suppose maybe you can look at simultaneous equations this way. Tap A can fill the tank in 2 hours. Tap B can fill the same in 3 hours. If both the taps are kept open, within how much time the tank will be filled? The same tank will be filled. Such questions can be looked into. Going further, you will be in a position to say that you know much about computing the LCM, computing the HCF, and so on and so forth. Whenever we say that the HCF of two numbers is 1, or say the GCD, greatest common divisor of two numbers is 1, we claim that they are relatively prime or co-prime. Based on this, you can get a lot more questions associated. Something like this. You are given a fraction A by B. You will get say some problem, assuming that it's a problem on rate of interest. And finally, whatever you are trying to get, it will be written in the form of a mixed fraction x into y, x, y by z. I'll elaborate x, y by z. Unless I need to know what it is, it's necessary that y by z that I have over here should be there in the simplest form. Whenever I say that it is there in the simplest form, it is assumed that the GCD of those two is 1. Some such concept is trying to, remember you can bring in the concept of GCD, and y by z is there in the simplest form. If you wish to express this in terms of the mixed, rather an improper fraction, it will be xz plus y divided by z, which each one of you know. So this is how we go about. Maybe proceeding further, some simple problems associated with mensuration. Something like area of the square is known to you, right? By chance, if I cut one part of the square, maybe a triangle out of it, what is the leftover area? Something like this. A square is written this way. This particular part of the triangle is cut. This as such is right, maybe I should say an isosceles triangle. Some area is cut. If this is cut, this distance is known, this distance is known out of 10 units, say, then what is the area of the leftover region? This being 2, the area of the triangle that can be computed. Area of the square in any case is known to you, minus this is the area of the leftover place. This area of the triangle will be half of base into height, half of 2 into 2, which is 2. 100 minus 2 will be obviously 98. Such questions can be looked into. Not necessarily this. Be very clear. Not necessarily this. You can get such situations. This is what I'm trying to say. Maybe you can certainly look at lot more properties associated with the basics of geometry. For instance, to deal with, you have a circle. Remember, if you are thinking of drawing cards, right? Cards which are equidistant from the center will be of equal length. It's a some school property, as property that your school teachers would have said many a times. Such questions get tested. Such good questions get tested. Maybe you can look at quite a few such situations as far as quant is considered. Maybe you can talk about instead of giving numbers, right? Suppose you are given, say, some numbers like 4, 6, 8. You can compute the LCM of this. You can compute the HCF of it, which and all are known to you. Maybe going further, if at all, if I can give you an expression, something like x square plus x plus 1, if at all, if that gets divided by x minus 1, what is the remainder? I'm just giving you some example. What sort of things? X exa, that's x square minus x. You do subtract, x square will go. This will be 2x plus 1. So you are left with 2. This will be 2x minus 2. This reduces to 3. So this also is a quotient. This is the divisor, right? That's the dividend, whereas this is the remainder. Based on that, some such situations can get generated. And you also fundamentally know, whether you deal with numbers or with algebraic expressions, that dividend equal to divisor into quotient plus the remainder, which is referred to as division algorithm. Maybe if you look at what all things that I have discussed, these are all things that you are aware of. Because over 10 years of schooling, probably these things have been taught to you maybe at 8th standard, 9th standard, or at 10th standard. Uh, Remember keeping, right, okay, syllabus in mind. I'm sure we would have said whatever you would have probably looked into this many years of schooling. Because any subject for that matter, irrespective of the kind of questions that you come across, suddenly one cannot build on the subject. Remember, it will be built gradually. It will be built gradually. We start with the basics across all subjects. We start with the basics, we build on that, then slightly complicate it, then look at further and complicate it further. This is how we go about. This is what it is. Now, this is with regard to the quant paper that you are looking at. Coming to mathematics, you know, there are quite a few areas of interest. As said already, it can be a problem on maybe rate of interest, it can be a problem on mensuration, or it can be a problem on algebra, right? Plenty of things are there. For instance, it can be a problem on commercial mathematics, it can be a problem on ratio and proportion, it can be a problem on divisibility, right? Lot more things are said. In most of the situations that you come across with regard to quant, remember, you need to compute the answer. At least in mathematics, remember, you have 15 questions of why 5 is the one that you should compute. The leftover 10 questions is an MCQ kind situation. It's an MCQ kind situation. You are required to choose one alternative which suits it properly, Now, what are the things that you really look into as far as mathematics is considered? Remember, most of you would have studied little bit of quadratic equations, or probably fractions, or going further, you would have probably looked into quite a few number line. To be more precise, number line you would have looked into. You would have looked into percentages. You would have looked into basics of trigonometry, basics of analytical geometry. Some thing you would have probably learned up till 10th standard. For instance, if at all, if I try to, I'll elaborate the whole lot with some specific examples so that you will get an idea of what should be your preparation before you actually take up such exams, is the content that I am trying to drive. I request you to look into. Maybe I'll give you a simple case. Do you pick questions directly from the NCERT book or from any of the books? Books such as probably your school teachers would have said, refer to R.S. Agarwal, right? Quite a few books are there. Maybe there's lot more books are there, or probably NCERT. Will that be sufficient to meet such exams? My answer is conceptually yes, but keeping problems in mind, we obviously expect you to look at slightly beyond your books, slightly beyond your books. Can we apply the concepts that we have studied to solve a situation is something that we look at. See, for instance, if you are looking at a quadratic equation, something like ax square plus bx plus c is equal to 0. That's the equation that you are looking at. Now, remember, it's necessary to say that a over here should not be equal to 0. Why? By chance, if this a vanishes, it's no longer quadratic. It's no longer quadratic. So keeping that in mind, I should say that a over there, the coefficient of x square over there should not vanish. If this is the case, I should be in a position to get the roots of this equation as something like x is equal to minus b plus or minus square root of b square minus 4ac divided by 2a. I'm sure these things would have been discussed in the school also. Suppose if alpha and beta are the roots of this equation, I should be in a position to say that alpha plus beta is equal to minus b divided by a, alpha beta is equal to c by a. These are all things that you know. In addition, if at all, if I am thinking of an equation of the sort ax square plus bx plus c is equal to 0, I'll take this as a1, b1, c1. I do take this as equation 1. One other equation is a2 x square plus b2 x plus c2 is equal to 0. This is the other equation, say. Intentionally over here, I have given two quadratic equations. First equation obviously has two roots. Second equation obviously has two roots. Right. Remember, these two roots can be independent of the two roots that I get from for equation 2. Or who knows? There might be a root in common. So there is one root common between these two. This has one more root. The other one has the third root. Or both the roots might be there in common. If at all, if a root is there in common, what might be the condition? How do we go about? If both the roots are there in common, how do we go about? Some such things in general can be discussed. For instance, if at all, if I assume that there is a root in common, I'm not elaborating a1 alpha square. I'm assuming that alpha is a common root here. C1 equal to 0. A2 alpha square plus B2 alpha plus C2 is equal to 0. These are the roots of the problem. If at all, because I have assumed alpha to be a common root, in which case it gives me A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. I'm repeating it. A1, A2, B1, B2. Discard this. This is alpha square, alpha 1. The method that I am using is rule of cross multiplication. Rule of cross multiplication. Or I prefer to state that it is method of cross multiplication. Now, in the process, what will happen is alpha square divided by product of these two minus the product of this. Take it from me. Maybe this method might not have been taught to you in school, right? That's okay. I'm only teaching, right? How and all that gets elaborated, because I can't probably elaborate all that at this stage, right? Now, this will be B1 C2 minus B2 C1. What's it I did? Product of these two minus the product of this should be equal to alpha into product of these two minus the product of this. C1 A2 minus C2 A1 should be equal to 1 divided by A1 B2 minus A2 B1. If you had to say something about alpha square, cross multiply B1 C2 minus B2 C1 divided by A1 B2 minus A2 B1. That's with regard to alpha square. Similarly, from these two equations, I can get alpha is equal to C1 A2. These two ratios, I can get this A1 B2 minus A2 B1. Now, you know what alpha and alpha square? I'm permitted to substitute the value of alpha over here so that I'll get C1 A2 minus C2 A1 divided by A1 B2 minus A2 B1 the whole square should be equal to B1 C2 minus B2 C1 divided by A1 B2 minus A2 B1. You can simplify this further. This is with regard to a fact that there is a root in common. Suppose both the roots are there in common, say, natural that these things should be proportional. A1 divided by A2 should be equal to B1 by B2 should be equal to C1 by C2. Then alone, both the roots of the equation can be there in common. Such concepts can be looked into. Sir, do we come across such theories? Obviously, yes. Obviously, yes. Sir, do I need to prepare something beyond our 10th standard? No. No. Common sense with little bit of, if at all, if you have, right, okay, maybe a fairly decent knowledge of mathematics, it is sufficient. This does not mean that you may be in a position to solve all 15 problems that gets given in a question paper. But my suggestion is whatever you solve it precisely. Why? Remember, if at all, if you solve them precisely, that will help you to build on your score. Build on your score. Though there is no negative marking, but it's certain that you should solve questions properly, choose the right option. If at all, if it is an MCQ type question, then alone one can proceed. So this is what it is. So some such simple applications can be looked into. Remember, I'll be in a position to form the third equation bit by the leftover two also. There is one root which is there in common, which is given as alpha. There is one more root here. Maybe I'll call it as beta. One more root here, gamma. You can certainly compute the roots using gamma as well as beta. So some such thing can be looked into. And you know the concept. The quadratic equation that is there over here, ax square plus bx plus c to be more precise, as such, gives me a parabola which faces upwards as long as a is more than 0. So that's the coordinate system. This is one case that I can think of. This is the other case that I can think of. This is the third case that I can think of. They cut each other at two values, alpha and beta. Whenever the line, or rather the curve under discussion, cut the x-axis at 2 points, these are the roots of the problem. There is only one root. Over here, it does not cut the x-axis, has no root. Such interpretations can be looked into, right? This is what we do or look into. Sir, in what way this is connected with the content that we have studied? Whenever I say that it is not cutting the x-axis, can I simply claim that the discriminant over there should be more than 0? What is the discriminant of the problem? B square minus 4ac divided. Yeah, that should be more than 0. If it becomes equal to 0, it will reduce to a perfect square, right? This should be less than 0. B square minus 4ac for that matter should be more than 0, in which case it will have two distinct roots. Such concepts can be looked into. If at all, if the argument a over here is less than 0, the parabola that I have written gets reversed. The parabola that I have written get reversed. Such concepts can be looked into. Maybe coming to basics of trigonometry, the fundamentals of trigonometry are known to you. Something like sin theta is opposite side by hypotenuse in case of a right angle triangle. Cosecant theta or cos theta is equal to adjacent side divided by hypotenuse. Similarly, tan, cot, secant, cosecant, etc. are all get defined. Then after, we do have something like sin square theta plus cos square theta equal to 1. 1 plus tan square theta is secant square theta. 1 plus cot square theta is cosecant square theta. Some basic things that has been discussed. What all things that you have? Remember, up till 10th standard, you have concepts associated with basics of trigonometry, followed by some standard angles. Something like sin 45 degrees is equal to 1 by root 2, sin 30 equal to half, and so on and so forth. Such situations get in general asked. We may not ask you that question. What is sin 30? No one will ask. Can we create a problem around that? It's always possible. So is the case with the basics of analytical geometry you would have studied. Suppose you are given 2 points x1, y1 and x2, y2, and you can certainly compute the distance in between the 2 points, which is in general given by this x1, y1, x2, y2 are the 2 points. The distance in between them is given by root of x1 minus x2 the whole square plus y1 minus y2 the whole square. Suppose you are given 3 points x1, y1, x2, y2 and x3, y3. The 3 points under discussion might be on one single line. That's point A. This is point B. This is point C. Remember, AB plus BC, if it becomes equal to AC, then it obviously these 3 points will be collinear. Suppose these 3 points are not collinear, in which case it obviously forms a triangle. Whenever it forms a triangle, some such thing, it has a simple property. Sum of two sides is certainly less than the third side. Sum of two sides is certainly less than the third side. You can think of introducing something more. The difference of these two is certainly more than the other one. Such concepts can be looked into. Sir, what's it you are trying to? Remember, these are all fundamental things on which you have been elaborated up till 10th standard. We test you based on all these things. We test you based on all these things. That's the basic agenda that we have. Now, I think I request each one of you to respond before I proceed further. If you have, say, some specific queries, because I'm sure for the next 10 minutes, I can elaborate on specific queries if there is something to ask, right? Then I think we can go about. Priyanka Hulgur, sir.
Okay, Jit. I will ask to students any questions. We have to speak that.
Yeah. So that, otherwise I'll be sharing my views. I have briefed how we look at the question paper, right? It's also certain that you can't have an entire complete discussion on how we look at the question paper. It's not fair on our part also.
ನಮಸ್ತೆ ಗುರುಜಿ.
ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ ಹೇಳಿಪ್ಪ.
ಟ್ರಿಗ್ನೋಮೆಟ್ರಿ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಕ್ವಶನ್ಸ್ ಬೀಳ್ಬೋದು?
ತುಂಬಾ ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ಆಗಿರೋ ಕ್ವಶನ್ಸ್ ಬರುತ್ತಮ್ಮ. ಬಿಕಾಸ್ let's be honest in stating that we have not taught trigonometry to you, and the entire trigonometry is not taught in your 10th standard also. You might get maybe out of 15 questions there might be a question or two on trigonometry. What sort of question? Something like this. Maybe a question, to be more precise, is if I should say capital A is equal to 30 degrees, capital B, or I'll simply say find the value of, I think I'll simply modify it, find the value of sin 30, cos 45, tan 45. Some such thing, say. I'm simply quoting some result, that's it. Sin 30 is half, cos 45 is 1 by root 2, tan 45 is 1, hence its answer will be 1 by 2 root 2. It's not this question. I'm only saying a sample there. Okay? Such questions. So, first and the foremost is get into the exam hall bit early. Yes, sir. Priyank, sir.
Guruji,
Guru, tell me, Pa.
can I ask the rule of cross multiplication?
What do you want me to?
Again, tell that.
Okay, okay. See, the question over here is,
Actually, it is not in a syllabus. Cross
quite a few
multiplication
things.
is left out.
Yeah,
2
there are
years.
quite a
So you have
Yes,
to,
Bob.
once again, you have to speak that.
Right, that's fine. Be very clear. It's not, we restrict ourselves to what is required for you. That's all. Everything, remember, all questions will not be of that form. I'm only quoting what we look at, that's it. Okay? So, remember, the question over here is, I'm changing the question to some such thing. C1 is equal to 0. A2x plus B2y plus C2 is equal to 0. Suppose you are required to, I solved a quadratic equation earlier. This is what I told you. When once you ask me questions, I'll be in a position to elaborate. Remember, over here, I'm giving you two simultaneous equations. I'm sure each one of you would have solved simultaneous equations in your school. Yes or no?
Yes, Ji.
Yes. Yeah. Now, what I do is, how do I solve this equation? I'll multiply this equation throughout by A2, this throughout by A1, and subtract. What will happen? A1 A2x plus B1 A2, or rather I'll say A2 B1y plus A2 C1 should be 0. A1 A2x plus A1 B2y plus A1 C2 is equal to 0. Suppose I subtract this goes, I do get A2 B1 minus A1 B2 into y plus A2 C1 minus A1 C2 equal to 0. Or shall I say that y is equal to A2 C1 minus A1 C2, or rather A1 C2 minus A2 C1, and transferring it on to the other side, I do get it as A2 B1 minus A1 B2. I can make use of this, substitute it over here and compute the value of x. This is some normal method which we do. Is there a method? Yeah, there is a method. Maybe I can certainly solve the same using the cross multiplication method. What do? List out the coefficient of x1 and x2. X over here, then b1, b2, c1, c2. Repeat b1, b2. Discard this. This is x, this is y, this is 1. I should say it's x divided by b1, c2 minus b2, c1 should be equal to 1 divided by a2 c1 minus a1 c2 should be equal to 1 by a1 b2 minus a2 b1. Do you remember, I can get what x and y are? X should be this by this, b1 c2 minus b2 c1 divided by a1 b2 minus a2 b1, whereas y would be a2 c1 minus a1 c2 divided by a1 b2 minus a2 b1. Now check whether this is same as this. It's the same. What is the difference? If you multiply the numerator and the denominator by a minus sign, you will be getting that. So there is a procedure with which you can get it. This is the normal way. This is what has been solved. This is what has been discussed in the school. This is something extra that I taught today. That's all. Are you clear?
Yes, Guruji.
Yeah. Okay. So get into the exam hall bit early. I'm sure your preparation for the test, sometime you need to spend time on that. Do preparation. Sample paper that has been given to you can be looked at as a sample only. More or less, you will look at some varieties of situations that are given, right? Something similar, not the same, will be tested, right, to you on December 25th. I think the date is December 25th. And based on the selections or based on your performance, you will be considered for the program. So this is the summary of what it is. So I expect each one of you to do well. Hope to see you soon. All the best. Do well. I need to stop my lecture over here at this stage. Reason being, I have a session elsewhere at 10. Okay. Thank you one and all. Thank you for your cooperation.